Have you ever noticed in novels or films a voice that tells the story but isn't actually part of that story world? Or have you come across those classic narrators in Once Upon a Time fables and folktales? Now, here's two questions. If you notice, what stands out is that every story needs a narrator, someone who tells it to us, the audience. In fact, we can say that almost every text, even articles and reports, has some kind of narrator offering a perspective, opinion, and point of view. In literature, or more specifically in narratology, this kind of narrator is called an extradiegetic narrator. And let me explain what this term means. The term extradiegetic comes from the Latin extra, which means outside of or beyond, and diegesis, which means narration. So an extradiegetic narrator is one who stays outside the story world, or who is somebody who is beyond the story world, like an omniscient narrator who observes from a distance. The narrator is not a character in a story, but somebody who is outside it, telling the story from an external viewpoint. But who gave this concept? It was coined by the French theorist Jared Genet, who revolutionized narrative analysis in his book Narrative Discourse, an essay in method, which was published originally in French in 1972. Now, to elaborate more, let me give some examples. Now, in most cases, classic novels in literature, we have this third-person omniscient narratives. There are so many examples. You check the works of Dickens, Tolstoy, and George Eliot. All of them have this kind of narration, an extradiegetic narrator. Or take the recent example like the Harry Potter series, where you have a third-person omniscient narrator who guides the audience or the reader through the story. Now let me give a very concrete example to elaborate it in a better way. Now, in many traditional tales, the narrator opens with, "This one is about coyotes," and then describes coyotes as a tricky one, full of business. Now, how do we interpret these lines? They only show us two important things. First, the narrator uses indirect characterization. That means we learn about coyote not by hearing coyote speak or seeing coyote act, but through the narrator's description. Since we are learning about the characters through the narrator's voice, not through direct action, now this is what we call diegetic narration or diegetic narrator. We are being told a story, but we are never shown the character. Secondly, the narrator clearly isn't about coyote or any of the characters in the story. The narrator is outside the story world. So this is a textbook case of an extradiegetic narrator. To help you better understand the term, I would like you to just imagine or think of extradiegetic as out of the universe. It doesn't matter whether the narrator is telling their own childhood story or someone else. As long as they are outside the story world, they are extradiegetic. Now, what are the functions and effects of extradiegetic narration? Now, in this kind of narration, there is a distance that is created between the reader and the story. It also establishes authority and objectivity. And then it enables an omniscient perspective. That means we get a perspective from a narrator who is not part of the story. And then this kind of technique shapes how the reader interprets the story through framing. Now, do we have this kind of narration in contemporary writing style, or a way of disseminating information to people? Yes, we do have some contemporary examples. Take the case of voice-over narration in films. You have a narrator who speaks from the background, and then we have documentaries. Now, we have narrators who explain events from outside. Then we also have video games narrators who guide players' experience. And then we have some more new innovative ways of spreading information, like podcasts and YouTube essays with an external narrator. So these are some of the contemporary examples of extradiegetic narration. Before I conclude, let me just give in a nutshell what we have learned so far. Extradiegetic narrator is someone who is outside the story world. Is omniscient, he or she is omniscient, authoritative, who gives perspectives. Now, this kind of narration is essential for understanding narrative structure. It is present in classic and also in contemporary storytelling. I hope you have understood what extradiegetic narrator is. Thank you for watching.